The Mortal Kombat series is very old, and as a result, you may be shocked to discover that many mysteries are still discussed to this day. Did a secret red ninja actually appear in Mortal Kombat 2? Did Kitana really have a twin named Scarlet who appeared in red? All of these mysteries are certainly interesting and worthy of discussion, but today I wanted to focus on a secret attack. Because this mystery attack was extremely rare, but the fans enjoyed it so much as a concept that the developers kept bringing it back in future games in new and interesting ways. Today's video is all about the mysterious red shadow kick. I know this video might not be as exciting as Mortal Kombat 12 news or Mortal Kombat 12 leaks or even a Mortal Kombat 12 dream roster, but even so I find this topic so interesting because once again people are still discussing it to this day, and to make things even cooler, there's not a single video about this topic on YouTube yet, which means I'm the first person to ever talk about it, so that's kinda cool. And if you think so too, I'd very much appreciate a like down below. It helps my channel out a ton, and it also encourages future video topics of this nature. If you haven't already, I also recommend subscribing, that way you never miss any future videos. And without any further ado, let's get started. The mysterious shadow kick made its public debut all the way back in Mortal Kombat 2, and fans were flabbergasted. Normally when you play Johnny Cage and do a special move, it's always green. Or at least that's how it worked in the first game, and in fact 90% of the time that was still the case in Mortal Kombat 2. But every now and then the shadow kick would turn red instead, and the rumors spread like wildfire. You see, some players believed this move actually did more damage and could be done with a specific input that was different than the regular shadow kick, whereas other players said you had to do the shadow kick multiple times during the match to even get the red shadow kick. And then of course you had some people who believed the attack was a completely random glitch that wasn't even meant to be in the game. And that rumor is actually more understandable than you might think, because Street Fighter 2 had a similar situation. If you picked Ryu or Ken, every now and then your Hadouken would turn red instead of the iconic blue color, and this attack soon had a nickname, the Red Fireball, even though if you look at it closely I would argue it's closer to orange. But even so, its nickname was the Red Fireball, and according to players it was completely random and very likely a glitch. Because let's be honest, there's no reason why developers would intentionally make the fireball turn red every now and then. They would never program that on purpose, so it has to be a glitch, right? Well, actually no, turns out the programmers did leave it in on purpose. It was 100% intentional. Now keep in mind, the Red Fireball does not do any more damage, it doesn't travel any faster, it is simply red instead of blue. And according to the programmers, the main reason they left the Red Fireball in Street Fighter 2 is because in future sequels they plan to actually make it a separate attack. And while that never did technically happen, it is still possible to get the Red Fireball whenever you do an EX Hadouken, which, just in case you don't play Street Fighter, is when you spend a meter on the regular Hadouken. You get a Red Fireball instead, and this time it does also do more damage and hits multiple times, which means it also beats regular fireballs. So yeah, the Red Fireball did finally become a new type of attack, even though it was never technically a separate move. But I digress, back to Mortal Kombat 2. Hopefully now you understand why many players assumed the red shadow kick was simply a glitch. Because at the time, that's what everybody thought about the Red Fireball too, because the programmers never came clean about it being intentional yet. Sometimes I think developers just like to mess with us, you know? And the same is true for the red shadow kick, because to this day, it's never been confirmed why it's in the game and what it can actually do for certain. If you go to an online forum today, you will still see people arguing about this move. I saw one guy who claimed it only happens when done during certain times of the day. And then I saw a different person claim this move does more damage and travels further and faster than the regular green shadow kick. But once again, I can't find solid confirmation on any of this, and that's likely because the red shadow kick is so crazy rare. However, there is one thing I'm fairly certain about. I do not think the red shadow kick is a glitch. I do think it was 100% intentional. And the reason I feel that way is because this move doesn't just have a different look, it even makes a unique sound effect. For whatever reason, the red shadow kick makes a laser beam like sound effect, or something electronic in nature, which is certainly interesting and why I believe this was put in the game on purpose, because sure, a move turning colors every now and then could be random, but a new color and a new sound effect, yeah, that's intentional. And like mentioned earlier, the developers had fun with this move and brought it back in future games, but in each game it's different, which is so interesting to me. For example, in Mortal Kombat Trilogy, the red shadow kick is actually a separate move, as in it's a different input than the green shadow kick, which on the one hand is great because now you can get it whenever you want to, but on the other hand, it's no longer special because it's not rare. You can just do it whenever you want. However, in Mortal Kombat 4, things changed once again. This attack was no longer its own special move, and in fact, it was no longer random either. Instead, the only way to get the red shadow kick was to pick Johnny Cage's Player 2 color. And in fact, this time around, it it wasn't just the Shadow Kick that changed color. Instead, every one of Johnny Cage's special moves was now red instead of green, which for me personally is really funny because now if you and your friend play each other, you can pretend the red Johnny Cage is the evil clone of the good Johnny Cage, because that would explain why every one of his moves are red instead of green, right? He's like the dark side of the Force, you know, like Star Wars. It makes sense to me anyway. But now let's fast forward to Shaolin monks, because once again, the red attack made a return, but in a different way. In every single game where this red Shadow Kick returns, the developers handle it in a different way. And oddly enough, in Shaolin monks, it's not even the Shadow Kick that turns red anymore. Instead, it's the Shadow Uppercut, which is a classic move that Johnny Cage has had for a long time, but even so, it's interesting how for once in the entire series, it's not the Shadow Kick this time. And you guessed it, every other single attack that Johnny Cage has is still its iconic green color. Or at least that's what I learned on GameFAQs. I've never actually played Shaolin monks, and people have gotten mad at me in the comments section over that, okay? I just missed the chance to play it when I was a kid, okay? Which means, unfortunately, I have to trust GameFAQs on this one, okay? And according to this one guy on GameFAQs, that's how it works in Shaolin monks. And now finally, we have the NetherRealm games, starting off with Mortal Kombat 9. In this game, the red shadow attacks make the most sense, in my honest opinion. If you do any special move with Johnny Cage, it's going to be green by default. However, if you choose to spend a meter and do an EX attack, guess what? That's right, the attack turns red. So for example, if you want the Shadow Kick, then just do the input. But if you want the red Shadow Kick, then spend some meter and do the EX version of that same attack. And unlike any other game mentioned so far, I can confirm that this time around, the red attacks do in fact do more damage. And then on top of that, the animation changes too, at least most of the time. It's usually an extra hit and a bit longer. But then we have Mortal Kombat X, and in this game, I think the developers did the best job handling the red shadow energy. It's very unique and creative. No longer is the red Shadow Kick random, and no longer is it restricted to a certain move or a certain character color, none of that stuff. And in fact, you also don't have to spend any meter on it like you did in Mortal Kombat 9. Instead, for this game, the red shadow attacks are tied to Johnny Cage's health bar. That's right, if Johnny Cage gets his butt kicked and is below 5% health, all of his special moves turn red. And you guessed it, they get stronger. Whether it be more damage or more range, they become better special moves, which is already really cool. But then on top of all of that, as the icing on the cake, even his throw becomes different and does more damage, which I just think is really cool. I can't think of any other Mortal Kombat character who gets a different throw when they're low on life. And this mechanic makes so much sense from a gameplay standpoint, because if you're losing and low on life, you're gonna want all of your attacks to start doing more damage, right? I mean, if anything, I wish it activated sooner, around 10% health. I think that way you'd see it a bit more often. But even so, the red shadow energy is just really cool in this game, and I love how it works from a gameplay standpoint, because it actually makes sense why a player would want the red attacks to show up this time. And in fact, it even makes sense from a lore perspective, because Johnny Cage is about to die, and as a result, his adrenaline is kicking in. His attacks are evolving and becoming more powerful just to save his life. When you think about it, NetherRealm should have done that for story mode. Have Johnny Cage use the red energy to defeat Shinnok. That would make way more sense, wouldn't it? I know hindsight is 2020, but man, that makes way more sense and would have made it way less confusing to players. Because normally Johnny Cage can glow green whenever he wants to, so why all of a sudden is it really powerful and able to defeat gods? But the red glow is completely different. It's been a mystery for the entire series, and fans recognize it as a more powerful version of the attacks. And once again, it only activates when Johnny Cage is at death's door, so it makes sense why we don't see it very often. So yeah, honestly, NetherRealm could have just used the red shadow energy to make the story a lot more clear in Mortal Kombat X. And of course, that would be true for Cassie Cage as well. She would turn red and then defeat Shinnok, and it would make more sense. Now, unfortunately, to my knowledge, the red shadow attacks do not return in Mortal Kombat 11, which is a shame because I love the mystery behind this attack, and I love how the developers kept bringing it back in different and unique ways to always keep the fans guessing. And best of all, I also adore how people online still can't agree on what this move is and how to actually trigger it in Mortal Kombat 2. Does it do more damage? Is it random? Does it require doing the move over and over again? Nobody knows for sure, and that's why I love it. And I hope you all loved this video as well. If you did, please leave a like down below. It helps my channel out a ton. And then keep that combo going by subscribing and ringing that bell. That way you never miss a future video. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.